This is Secret America.
Welcome, everybody. I am Jack Danger along with Jay Gatling. And tonight we are stepping into a world that most people pretend doesn't even exist. Drugs, addiction, trafficking, destruction of entire communities. Our next guest didn't just study it, he lived it. You've seen him on A&E's hit show Dopeman, where he takes you inside the brutal real-world battle against addiction and the drug trade. He's been on both sides of it. He's seen the system from the inside, lived through the chaos, and now he's exposing it. Joining us today is Tim Ryan. Tim, let me for some reason I hate when it does this, man. I was just about to bring in Tim Ryan. Everything was looking good, and then of course it does the stupid stuff, right? Tim, how you doing today, man?
I'm blessed. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Jay, for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, hey, we're blessed to have you here, man. I mean, this, and what people don't know is, before we get started, what people don't know is you were our second guest ever. When we first started the show, May 18th. It was May 18th, 2024. You were our third episode, our second guest ever. We were a pre-recorded audio show back then. So we weren't able to get you on the video. We weren't able to, but the story was just really compelling. So it's great to have you back here. It's great for you to actually be able to be seen now. And even back then, we had a pretty decent audience for just being a third episode for a pre-recorded, audio show. But now we're here for everybody to hear your story. So, Jay, do you got anything to say before you start?
No, it's a pleasure to meet Tim. I wasn't here on that show. It was before my time with Jack on this show. So, Tim, I'm really happy to have you here and really looking forward to this.
Absolutely. I'm stoked to be here. Man, it's been a while, too. I remember when you asked me to do that. And I'm like, who's this friggin' guy? But I've watched you. I watch people and I see where this thing's blowing up to. And thank you for asking me to be back on. People are afraid to talk about addiction and mental health and suicide and all that. But everybody has a friend struggling with addiction or mental health or has killed themselves. But nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, see, you were one of our favorite guests anyway, so that's why I wanted to have you back regardless of anything, because your personality, it's magnetic. I love the energy. I love it. So if you want, why don't you just go ahead and tell your story, and then afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about it and ask you some questions.
Yeah, pay attention and hang on, because I rock and roll. I'll start out like I normally do. My name's Tim Ryan. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic, sober by the grace of God, a 12-step based program, and a little bit of effort on my part. I'm proud to be sober. My sobriety date is November 1st of 2012. So I'm 13 and a half years sober. But my first time checking into treatment, Jack, I don't even know if you were alive, was 1990.
Yeah, I was up 87. I was born. I was still alive at the point.
He was just getting out of diapers. He was just getting out of diapers around that.
I'm thinking 87. I was running ecstasy between Dallas, Houston, and Mississippi and Monroe, Louisiana. So, I can tell you, I was born in the northern suburbs of Illinois. Like I said, my first time checking into treatment, I opened a phone book in 1990. I was 21. How did I get to that point in 1990? I talk about things a lot of people are afraid to talk about, because as I look back on my life, actually this gentleman speaking tonight in Pasadena, Dr. Gabor Mate, and Dr. Mate is based out of Canada, and he's been working with people struggling with mental health and substance abuse for 45 years. And I saw him speak 2 years out of prison. I'll get into that. But this guy, it's a conference and there's 300 clinicians. And I was one of 5 people that wasn't a clinician there. And he specializes in people with trauma. And he said, how many people in the audience are adopted? And I put up my hand. There was about 20 of us. He said, do you realize people that are adopted are 48,000 times more susceptible to become an alcoholic or a drug addict due to the abandonment issues?
Did you say 48,000?
48,000 times more susceptible just due to the abandonment. Now, I was raised in a town called Crystal Lake, Illinois. We're all adopted. We knew we were adopted, but I guess there's still a catalyst. But then, you know, a lot of people that struggle with alcohol and drugs, it was never the drugs. It was the trauma. And trauma comes in many ways, shapes, or forms: emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, or sexual. A majority of people have childhood trauma. And I looked at my life and said, okay, I was adopted, get it. My brother and sister are 3/4 Chippewa Indian. You know, we were that family with the dark skin kids, and they were called derogatory names. So I learned to protect them with my mouth and my fist. My older brother was 2 years older than me. But, you know, none of that bothered me, but it was the learning disabilities. I was a stupid kid at 57 years old. I don't know what a verb, a pronoun, an adjective, a conjunctive sentence is. I spell it about a third grade level. I never comprehended it. So I struggled with that. I got bullied. I became a bully. My older brother kicked my ass for 10 years every day. I was molested by the babysitter at 10 years old for 2 days. That was my trauma. What became my solution? Well, drugs and alcohol. I grew up on a lake. I came from a good fucking family. I mean, my dad worked at the Chicago Board of Trade for 26 years. In 26 years, he never missed a day of work. He worked for a little company called E.F. Hutton. He ultimately became senior vice president, ran the whole country. My mom, in 74, co-founded a company called Market Day, which was a food co-op they brought into schools. And if they sold 10 grand worth of food, $1,000 went to the school. This went nationwide. Any sporting event we were at, my parents were at. We had dinner every night at 6:30. So I can remember being in treatment, and a couple days before I got out in 1990, my dad came in to visit me, and my parents are my heroes. And I remember my dad saying, Tim, where did we go wrong as parents? And I said, you didn't do anything wrong. And he kind of sits back and he goes, oh, I know that. I'm like, shit, where's he going with this one? He said, Tim, while you were in treatment, your mother and I got some help. And if you've ever heard of that cult called Al-Anon, they got to my mom and dad. So if somebody gets sober, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous or narcotics or Celebrate Recovery or Refuge Recovery, or you get a therapist and do working out or whatever. Well, for families that have a loved one struggling, they recommend Al-Anon or Families Anonymous, and it's all the fucked up parents that want to talk about us fucked up drug addicts. And my dad says, Tim, well, why you're in treatment, we got some help. And I learned I didn't cause your disease, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. And he said, I'm not going to contribute to it either. So you're welcome to come home, go to your little meetings, but the day you start drinking, don't let the door hit you where God split you. And so, you know, my drinking started at probably 12. At 14, I was a freshman in high school. My best friend was 18. He was a senior in high school. We're both blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'1". I can tell you his social security number and his driver's license to this day, because we're going up to Wisconsin drinking every weekend. The drinking age was 18. We're a half hour away.
Where were you getting the alcohol at 12? Who was getting the alcohol at 12?
Yeah, I want to ask you real quick, what was the first drug that you tried? And do you remember how it felt and why people continue to do that after they feel it the first time?
I think I smoked pot trying at 9 or 10. I didn't like weed. Drinking was probably 12. I tried it. 14, I know when I got drunk the first time, because my buddy Randy had went to college to visit his brother, came back with 2 cases of beer, called me, and we drove around and drank a case of beer in about 4 hours, and I puked my brains out that night. And but there was no consequences in the early 80s growing up. Nobody got hell, my buddy Randy, his dad was sergeant of the police department. So we got away. I'd get pulled over. I would say I was Randy. We looked the same. So when I call him and say, hey, I got pulled over, said I was you. He said, all right, I'll let my dad know. But there was no consequences. But back then, it wasn't an issue, you know, but at 15, I wanted to hang out with the old. I can remember the first time I did cocaine. I was at Jim Spielman's house. He's dead from a drug overdose. I was with Brian and Pat, who were my age. We're sophomores in high school, and we're sleeping at Pat's house. Brian's older brother, Joel, was at this party. He was a senior in high school and asked if we wanted to do a line of cocaine. We each put in $5 and we split a quarter gram. We each did 1 line of cocaine. And I felt good instantly. And it's about a half hour later, Pat and Brian said, hey, we're going back to my house. I said, I'll be there in a little bit. And as soon as they left, I went up to Joel and I said, "Hey, do you have any more of that?" He goes, "Yeah, I got a half gram. I'll split it with you. You owe me $25 on Friday." Great. First time I did cocaine, I'm having it fronted to me. And I knew, well, every day I can save my lunch money and just give him $25 on Friday. And that's what I did. And I never fucking wanted to run out of cocaine again. You know, I just fell in love with it because what it did for me was it took away my anxiety, my insecurities. Not that I couldn't talk. I mean, I was one of the top ranked water skiers in the country. I lived.
I remember you saying that. Yeah, that was
I
impressive.
had the boat. I had the girls. You know, so that wasn't an issue. But I knew everybody, the freaks, the jocks, the weirdos. But I never got too close to too many people because I didn't want them to know how much I was drinking or how much cocaine I was doing. Makes sense. Then 17, I went down to college because they had open admissions. I had a 1.4 grade average. I took the ACT 5 times. I got an 11. A perfect score is a 36. I'm dumb as a box when it comes to books. But I went down to Louisiana because they had open admissions. They had the best intercollegiate water ski team in the country. 3-to-1 girl to guys I can hunt and fish, and the drinking age was 18. So Monroe, Louisiana.
Sounds like a great place to go.
Hell yeah, it was. But of course, I never got on the water ski team because I was told I was a liability. You show up for practice late, you're always out partying. So
yeah, not a great place to go if you have these kind of issues.
Now, and then I met all these black dudes that were from Chicago, and they were all in this fraternity called the Phi Beta Sigma. So I started hanging out with them, but then I had my hillbilly rednecks, and they wouldn't let the hillbillies come around because I was a Yankee, and that was the first time I smoked cocaine was with those guys.
Oh, really? Was it crack or was it cocaine?
No, it was real cocaine.
You freebase? Okay.
Good old freebase. He made out of a baby jar. I'm like, hell, I like this. But back then, in college, we could go pick magic mushrooms. I got into hallucinogenics. Ecstasy was legal in the state of Texas up until 1985. They sold it in bars. They used it for depression and marriage therapy. Well, when they made it illegal, there was mass quantities of pharmaceutical grade X laying around, and we know where to get it. So we literally go to Vicksburg, Mississippi, pick up 20 grand from a guy, go to Dallas or Houston, pick up 20,000 hits, come back. We're getting them for $1 a piece. The guy that put up the money, we charged him $7. So we're making $6 on every pill. Yeah. And all I did was more cocaine and party. And I studied partyology.
Yeah. Tell me real quick. I want to ask you, because something that I think scares a lot of people. Tell me, when was the first time you overdosed? Tell me about the first time you overdosed.
Oh, that doesn't start for a number more years.
Okay, then keep going. Then no, start where you were then.
No, anyhow, let me
ask one question.
You can ask 5 if you'd like.
No, just one right now. Since that's going to be later on. When did you maybe start to realize you had a problem?
That's a great question. 15 years old. Fucking, I knew I was an alcoholic, and that's a great question because I can remember. I think I was 18 years old. We're all going to see Pink Floyd at the Rosemont Horizon or Alpine Valley. And I didn't go because I couldn't get cocaine. I couldn't get an 8-ball of cocaine, so I wasn't going to the concert. I was supposed to go the night Stevie Ray Vaughan died at Alpine Valley. I was supposed to go to that. Him and Clapton were playing, and I didn't have cocaine, so I didn't go.
You missed Clapton? Oh, man. Yeah, Clapton saved cocaine. Come on now.
And I used to see Stevie Ray Vaughan in AA meetings in Austin, Texas when I was down there. And then, a number of years later, I'm back partying again and he's sober and gets killed. But nevertheless, I left college. I came back. I did odd jobs. I sold stereo equipment. I got into smoking cocaine, dealing cocaine. Me and this guy, Roger was a friend of my sister's uncle. Hell, I'm 19, 20, he's 50, but he had the cocaine hookup in Chicago. So Roger and I every day would go to Chicago. We'd go to the noon mass on the north side of Chicago, and we'd kneel down, and this Colombian lady would hand us a newspaper with 2 ounces of cocaine. And we'd go back and we'd sell 1 ounce and we'd smoke the other. And things got dark real quick. I started stealing checks from my mom and my brother and cashing them at my buddy's gas station. I opened a phone book and I went to check myself into rehab, and I got there and they're trying to verify my dad's insurance, and I sat in on a group, and I'm like, yeah, I got $400 in my pocket. I'm out of here. A week later, I checked myself in, and it was January of 1990. I did the 30 days, got out, put on 30 pounds, felt good, started going to 12-step base meetings. I went to the Chris Lake Alano Club every day, and I'd put my hand up and say, I'm looking for a sponsor. And nobody would pick on me. It'd be like, yeah, I got away with it again. See, I'm the guy that thought I could get sober with through osmosis. It's like
everybody thinks that at first. I swear, everybody.
It's like what I do now for a living. I'm an interventionist. I speak. I film movies. I do all sorts of shit. And people are like, well, I want to do what you do. Well, go through what I went through, survive, then you can do what I do.
Tim,
you know, you can't. It's
real quick. Your audio and video are not matched up. I don't know if you can hear me well.
I can hear you.
Yeah, there was some kind of weird thing that just happened. I think it was like a glitch, and now your audio and video don't match up.
What do we do?
Real quick.
Hello.
There you go.
Okay, it looks. I think it's better now. Go ahead.
It had to catch up.
Technology at its finest.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. They say they can put a man on the moon in 1969, but internet still glitches, right down the street.
So you know what's really scary with that is 90% of the people think we put somebody on the fucking moon.
Yeah, it's
that's what's scary.
And we did a episode about that. Jay was one of the people that was not sure, but after the episode, we changed his mind. Now I don't think he believes the moon landing stuff anymore.
NASA, not a space agency.
Hello. I love it.
So anyhow, let's get to that junkie drug addict Tim motherfucking Ryan. Where the fuck was I? Anyhow, so we're doing a bunch of blow. I go to rehab, get out, and I go to meetings, and me and my buddies start a water ski school, and I got an asphalt seal coating business and trying to get all my buddies sober. And I started competing in barefoot water skiing that year, and I won Illinois State, Michigan State, Wisconsin. I slotted to win the nationals. In the Midwest regionals, I did what's called a front to back. And I caught a toe and blew out L4, L5, S1 immediately. My career was over, and Dr. Wu introduced me to 300 Vicodin in a month. I didn't like the pills, so I went right back to smoking weed because I'm going to meetings, but I have no fucking foundation. And
you say you didn't like the pills?
No, I didn't like the pills.
Really?
Yeah, I was 21 at the time. I was an upper guy. I liked cocaine. I didn't like being down. I didn't like smoking weed.
Yeah. I was going to say, because most people start on like heroin and stuff and morphine and stuff because of some kind of injury that they get,
Well, let me expedite this because we'll talk about how I got to the heroin. So anyhow, I went back to drinking, and as soon as I drank, I went back to coke, and next thing I don't have a business and I'm getting evicted. So I moved to Austin, Texas with my best friend and pulled some credit card fraud on him, finally got sober, met some guys marketing. I had a warrant out for 20 years in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Travis
What was the
County
warrant?
Jail. I've got a client in there right now that's getting out tomorrow. I've got going to rehab. But nevertheless, I did make amends with that friend 15 years later, but I started traveling the country selling cable television door to door with a bunch of sober guys. And a year later, I started my own firm in Buffalo, New York. And at 22, I was making 30, 40 grand a week profit. Made my first million and had 60 guys working for me. And I went back to smoke and coke, shacked up with a broad 10 years older than me. And it was just total insanity. And buried that business back to Illinois, moved into mommy and daddy's. And I went from making 30, 40 grand a week to taking a job at a $300 a week draw as a headhunter. Started out as a data processing recruiter. And I learned that business and made a bunch. Making money was easy. I could always make money. Saving it and managing it. Now that's the hard part. So I did that for about a year and a half. I went to work for one of our clients, a management consulting firm in Chicago. And the one thing my dad taught me was fucking work ethic. I've worked since I was 9 years old, humping up beer. I've always worked. There's no fucking free rides. And this generation today is the laziest, silver-spooned generation I've ever seen. And it's scary. But
it's scary, because they're going to run the place one day, so.
Maybe we'll get in a spaceship and go to the fucking moon.
There you go. We'll build a colony out there on the moon, right?
Exactly.
Better late than never.
Yeah,
exactly. I'd rather just go live on an island in the ocean.
Yeah.
But where the fuck was I? I don't even know where I was. Where were we? Rehab.
Yeah, you were.
You're talking about work
management
ethic.
I'm working at this management consulting firm in Chicago, and if my boss was in at 6 in the morning, I was in at 5:30. If he left at 7 at night, I left. I was always in before the boss, and I started hiring a lot of people and making a lot of money. And I got a custom ski Nautique boat. I got a pearl white 92 FLT cop bike Harley. I got a pearl white Jeep. I'm hiring everybody with MBAs, PhDs from Harvard, Cal Poly, Berkeley, MIT, Yale, Brown Rice. I only hired the best of the best. And I'm the guy at the 1.4 grade average making more money than all these fucking saps. And every night I'm with myself, by myself, crying to myself because I couldn't stop drinking and doing cocaine. Because we were off Cumberland Avenue in the 90, and there's 3 towers. Well, the middle tower had a Bennigan's restaurant. So that's right. I'd interview Jack at 1, Jay at 2, Bob at 3, Susie at 4, Mark at 5, Joe at 6. So I could sit there and drink all day. And my dealer would bring me an 8-ball or quarter-ounce Coke. And that was my day. And I met a lady at work and started dating her. And next thing, she's pregnant. And
Oh, man.
I ended up marrying her. And she had Nicholas, my son, who was 3 years old at the time, and had a deadbeat dad who was a drug addict. So me being adopted, I had adopted Nick, and Max came along, and then Tanner, and then Abby. Then my wife realized that she's living with a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict. And I'd been up doing blow. I was a recruiter. I owned a recruiting firm. And I don't know, I'd been up for a few days and passed out. And when I woke up, I think it was a Saturday morning, my 14-month-old was crawling towards my home office. So I put Max back in his play area, and I opened my office door, and there's rocks of coke all over the floor. If my son would have pushed that door and put one, it would have killed him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So now I go back to meetings. This time I get 14 months sober, kind of got a sponsor, kind of working the steps. And I meet Joel and Jim Gallery and Joel Aarons. And I can use both their names because they're both dead. We started the West Suburban Fellowship Club in Naperville. Had opened the day before I walked in. And Jim and Joel were there. And it turns out Jim Gallery, he was a bonds trader in Chicago. This is all God putting all this shit in my life, whether you believe in it or not. Absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Jim Gallery is a bonds trader. And a couple weeks in, we built a friendship. And he says, hey, what's your dad? I said, he's Tom Ryan. I said, he's senior vice president in EF Hut. And he goes, do you know your dad's secretary, Kathy? I said, yeah, I've known her 18 years. Why? He said, that's my sister. I said, you got to be shitting me. So that's how I knew Jim. And then I meet Joel. And Joel was my age. We were 32 at the time. And he tells me he used to work for a place in Chicago called On Time Courier 10 years prior. And I said, that was on Randolph Street, right? He goes, yeah. I go, Mike was your boss, your manager. He goes, how the hell do you know Mike? I said, I used to do a lot of cocaine at your office. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, On Time Courier was actually a front. You guys ran drugs all over Chicago. He goes, we did. And I said, do you know Darris? He goes, that hillbilly from Louisiana with the red pickup truck? I said, that's Darris. He goes, how do you know Darris? I said, he lived across the street from me in college. And when I left, I dragged him with me, and he worked at the Drake Hotel and worked at On Time Courier. That's how I know Mike, because we used to party with them all the time. So these guys get put in my life.
That's amazing.
So Joel asked me 3 weeks later. Jim unfortunately committed suicide 6 years ago from mental health. No. Just heart-wrenching. And Joel died last year from a drug overdose. Joel, about 2 weeks later, asked me to take him to Chicago to move out of his apartment. Now I'm 14 months sober, and I'm moving Joel out, and out of the bedroom, this guy pops. Who are you? What are you doing here? I said, I'm Tim. I'm moving out your roommate, Joel. Who are you? He said, I'm Saab, his roommate. I said, what are you doing? He said, heroin. You want to do something? Sure. That quick.
Is that the first time you ever tried?
That's how I did heroin.
Oh, wow. Wait. Important distinction. The first time you did you use needles?
No, the first time I did it, I was 14 months clean and sober, going to a 12-step based meeting every day. Went to meetings every day, but I didn't have a sponsor and I wasn't working the steps, so I had no foundation. And he said so I tried one bag and I snorted it.
Oh, okay. So you didn't.
And I'll tell you, it was China white heroin, and that's what I thought I was looking for.
And you didn't overdose on that one?
Nah. About 3 weeks later, it's the middle. I'm sitting out in my lawn. It's 90 degrees, and I am shitting and puking and sitting in a lawn chair. And Joel calls. And I said, dude, I have got the flu so bad. He said, have you been seeing my friend Sava? I said, yeah, he brings me a bag of heroin every day, but he didn't come today. Joel says, I'll be at your house in 15 minutes. He comes over, he gives me a bag of heroin. He said, snort that. I snorted it, and a minute later, I felt fine.
Yeah.
I go, what's the deal? He goes, you were dope sick. When you do opiates for 4 or 5 days, you're going to build a tolerance, and if you stop, you're going to go into withdrawal. He said, you're in withdrawal. So my thinking is, I'm just not going to run out of heroin anymore.
Yeah, right.
But all kidding aside, alcohol, drugs are bad. That heroin, fentanyl now ravaged my soul. That one bag turned into a 12-year habit. I've overdosed 8 times, have been clinically dead 3, cost me 20-plus county jails, 2 stints in prison, 5 driving on revokes, 2 more DUIs, and about $1.5 million.
Tim, something I want to ask you real quick. Do me a favor. Describe to everybody out there, what is it like when you overdose on opiates? Do you know that you're about to can you feel it coming on, or?
Great question. So I overdosed a couple times snorting heroin. Towards the end of my heroin run, past 5 years, I was shooting it. And my veins are collapsed. My worst fear now is going to give blood, because they got to use that machine to find my veins, because I did a lot of damage. But no, let me get to this point. So no, dying, an overdose is the most peaceful way to die. I hate to fucking say it.
So you don't feel it coming on or anything?
No, you kind of get a big rush, and all of a sudden my last overdose. So 2008, I go to prison. They give me a year in prison I got 4 driving on revokes in a year. I got 2 of them by the same Chicago cop, 8 months apart in 2 different cars. Fucking Officer White. And I think he was sober. But the second time Officer White pulls me over. So I got my driving on revoke in DUI in 98. I got to drop to a reckless driving. You can't get another DUI for 5 years. 4 years and 50 weeks to the day I get pulled over. I had 3 beers. I refuse to blow. They give me a DUI. So now I've got 2. I lose my license for 3 years. I don't fucking drive. A week before I'm to get my license back, I buy a car. And I drive to Michigan for some family event, and I leave early because I ran out of heroin. And I get pulled over in Blue Island, Illinois, by the chief of police off duty in his pickup truck for not using my turn signal. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
Wow, that's insanity.
So that gets me my first driving on revoke. Well, now I lose my license for 2 more years. I said, fuck it, I keep driving. 2 weeks later, Officer White gets me. And I was a slick drug addict because I'd wear a suit and carry AA literature with me. And in Chicago, here's my bit of advice. In Chicago, the lights go from green to yellow to red in 2 seconds. In the suburbs, it's 5. So as soon as that thing changes, you better hit your brakes, because I went through and Officer White pulled me over and he says, what are you doing? I said, sir, I work for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm on a 12-step base call. He goes, you don't work for anybody, you asshole. You're a drug addict and you're going to buy drugs. He said, nobody works for Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a volunteer program. And I said, well, do what you got to do. And he writes me 2 or 3 tickets. And he says, hey, Mr. Ryan, I'm going to give you 2 bits of advice. He said, hey, go get some help for your drug problem, because I know you got one and you seem like a good guy. And he said, quit driving, because they're going to put you in prison. And I said, what do I do now? He said, get in your car and drive home and don't drive anymore.
He said, quit driving, but get in your car and drive home.
So that
he gave you one last shot, one last ride.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
So
that be fun if you drive home, like you go like a mile, then he pulls you over again?
So that gets me 30 days in Cook County jail. And I got four little fucking kids. So I'm telling them I'm going out of town for work. Well, when I got sentenced I got another, and then I got an Officer White got me again, and I get sentenced to a year in prison. Well, they give you 61 days and they release you. So I told my kids I was going to India on business, because when I call home, it'd come up prison, and my wife would say, hey, your dad's calling from the prison hotel in India. Would you like to talk to him?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But,
whatever works.
Here I'm having to lie to my fucking kids because dad's a
Yeah.
fucking piece of shit drug addict who can't fucking get sober. And I caused a lot of damage. I painted a lot of trauma on my kids' lives. And I'll never forget that, but I don't live there anymore. So anyhow, I get out of prison. I start another executive search firm. I make a bunch of money. I go right back to doing heroin. December 16th of 2010, I drove one more time. I go to my dealers in Chicago, buy a bunch of dope, and he had a kilo of pure heroin. He says, Tim, in his porter, Tim, be careful. It's very strong. So I snort a little and I leave and I pull over to a McDonald's and I shoot up a big rig of dope. Oh, wow. And I sat there and I put my shit away. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't OD. And I start driving. Mm-hmm. Then it was like the last thing I remember, it was like as a kid looking in a kaleidoscope. Mm-hmm. Or if you've ever done DMT, going down a DMT, it was like that kaleidoscope. And next thing, I'm being wheeled on a gurney into West Suburban Hospital. Now, I don't have my glasses on, and I'm blind as a bat. And I can remember this nurse going, are you Tim Ryan? Are you the water skier from Crystal Lake, Illinois? I said, yes. She said, I went to high school with you. You're in a lot of trouble. You killed 2 people. You need to get your life together. So then they wheel me back, and I got this cop telling me I killed 2 people. So I'm freaking out. I remember the nurse saying, we need to get blood or urine. And I looked at the other cop. I said, I don't have insurance. Go book me. And they took me to the holding station. And the other cop comes in the cell and he says, hey, man, you want a cigarette? And I'm like, please. And he kind of puts his arm around me and he said, hey, man, I want to apologize for my partner. And I said, excuse me? He said, you didn't kill anybody, but you did put 4 people in the hospital. My partner doesn't like you people. I said, what do you mean, you people? And he said, well, you junkies, because my partner's brother just died from a drug overdose. So the cop was really, but for, 4 or 5 hours, I'm thinking I killed 2 people.
Why did the nurse say you killed 2 people?
Because that's what the cops told the nurse.
Oh, wow. That's scary shit.
It was, but then, I did put 4 people in the hospital, one being a 9-month-old baby. Thank God they're okay. Yeah. I sat in jail for a week, got bailed out, went right back to using, fought my case for 21 months, and now everyone in my family knows I'm a heroin addict. And my oldest son, Nick, who was, 17, 18 at the time, about 3 months in, I'm fighting my case. I'm really dope sick, and I'm taking a hot bath because when you're kicking opiates, you're hot, you're cold. So I'm taking a hot bath, and Nick comes in the bathroom. He's like, "What's wrong, Pops?" I said, "What do you think, you idiot? I'm dope sick." And he said, "I ain't more, Dad. Today's your lucky day." And my son threw 2 bags of heroin on the counter, and I snorted them immediately. Wow! And I felt good instantly. And I went.
Where did you get that?
Chicago.
How old was your son?
17, 18.
Oh, okay.
Was he using or?
Yeah. So he was. So I go in his room and I said, "Nick, what the fuck are you doing?" He said, "Don't worry, Dad. I'm just selling a little bit." I said, "Nick, this isn't weed. This is heroin. And you know what this drug has done to me." And my son looked right at me. He said, "Well, Dad, you're a successful drug addict." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And he said, "Well, look, we got a nice house. You got an office in the Wrigley building. You make a good living." See, in my son's delusional eyes, because I functioned, he thought I was successful. And I was the dad that let him and his buddies smoke weed in the basement, drank hell. I probably tripped on acid with them occasionally because I thought that was the safe thing to do. As I'm upstairs banging heroin. Well, 6 months later, I caught him snorting heroin. So we started using heroin together. And the last 8 months of me fighting my case, Nick and I used every day. That's how we bonded. And people can't wrap their head around it. It's like, well, how many 16-year-olds had beers with their dad and got hammered with their dad? It's the same fucking thing. You're just using a different drug. It's a reality.
It's true.
So anyhow, I go to prison. October 30th of 2012, I get sentenced to 7 years. I'm 158 pounds. I'm 6'1". I got a fucking 5 gram a day heroin habit. I'm drinking a gallon of vodka, and there ain't no detox.
Oh my God. Can't you die from severe detoxification?
From alcohol withdrawal, absolutely. Yeah. So I stopped at my fucking dealers on the way to jail. Mm-hmm. This poor fucking Polish cab, my dealer never let me come to his house either. And I said, "Dude, I'm going to prison." He's like, "Meet me at the garage." I get about 60 bags, and my dumb ass wears a Hell's Angels Carhartt jacket to court. So I hid all the bags of heroin in the coat, and I go in, they sentence me. And I go in back and I'm telling the cop, I said, hey, I need my coat. He's like, no. I said, it's cold in the bullpens and it's got my wallet and cell phone. I need to give them to my lawyer. So the cop goes out and gets my coat and brings it back to me. And he goes to pull the sleeve. He goes, you probably got a needle in here. You're one of those junkies. I go, sir, do you think I'd bring drugs into a penal institution? I ain't that fucking stupid. And he hands me my coat and I put it on. And he walks me to the holding cell, and bags of heroin start falling all over the floor.
Oh, man.
So I was able to get them, and I got through, and
they didn't see him?
No, they never got them.
Man,
you got to go through the metal machine, and I'd put them in my sock, and it didn't set it off. So if I would have got caught with it, it's 15 to 45 years.
You'd probably still be in
board.
Yeah.
You'd probably still
so
be
anyhow, I spent 3 days in Cook County, got transferred to Stateville, Northern Illinois Receiving Center. That's when the sickness kicked in. Hell on earth. Man. I shit and puke myself for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep a wink for a month. Not a wink.
They don't give you anything to try to help you.
Nothing.
That's unbelievable. Because you can die from those kind of withdrawals.
Well, but I kind of just manned up and dealt with it. You got a bunch of people like at Cook County Jail. You could get transferred to Cermak Hospital, but that's all the loonies. I just deal with
people don't understand how bad those withdrawals can be, because it's not just, shitting and puking yourself.
No, you gotta. It's the mental madness. Kicking alcohol's a motherfucker, because you can die from that. You can die from kicking benzos, Xanax, Klonopin, Valium. But the opiates, I mean, you would think 5 hours has went by, and it's been 3 minutes.
Yes.
Three, and I would.
And you want to rip your skin off. You feel like you want to rip your skin off.
It's all. And now try being locked in a 6 by 9 foot prison cell that you don't leave. You can't leave it. I didn't eat food for a month.
Wow. I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine that.
And then I finally got prison's interesting. So they wait. I didn't sleep, but at 3 a.m. So 2 weeks in, I stopped throwing up and puking. And I look out my cell and I just said, God, higher power, Allah, Buddha, Fred, if you're out there, please take away this obsession and compulsion use. And I swear I will turn my will and life over to you. And I said, God, please let me get into Sheridan prison. And the next day I was transferred to Sheridan. In Illinois, they had 28 prisons, 2 had therapeutic drug treatment programs. And I got into one. And you do 30 days in SEG, 30 days in orientational. And I got into one of the little buildings in back, and I walk in. And there's this big black guy sitting on a bunk reading an AA big book. And I walk in, I said, hey, man, what's up? And he looks up at me like I bothered him. He goes, hey, Whitey, you into recovery? I said, yeah, why? He goes, because if not, you ain't coming in this fucking cell, because that's all we do in here. I said, I'm into recovery. He goes, hey, I'm Big Perk. I said, hey, Big Perk, I'm Tim. He looks at me again. He goes, Tim, I think I'm going to call you Powder. I said, you can call me whatever you want. Big Perk was a gang chief with the conservative vice lords for 30 years on the west side of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
He was a ruthless man. He had spent 23 years of his life behind the wall 10 different times. He's the most important person in my life next to my wife and kids, because I would not be alive without James Perkins. He saved my life.
Is he still alive?
Hell fucking yeah. Wrote a chapter. I talk to him every fucking day.
Excellent.
That's how I fucking roll. Some of my closest friends I met behind the wall in prison.
Hold that thought. Before it gets too late, I want to ask you, you said you clinically dead 3 times.
Yeah.
In any of those experiences, did you cross over? Can you tell us anything like that? Or do you just not remember?
It's interesting. 2 of the times, absolutely nothing. One of the times, it's like there's all this light. And it was like I was over my body, and then I was instantly in my body. It was the weirdest shit. And that was at Rush Copley Hospital in Aurora, Illinois. That was my last. Here's my last overdose. So I had to hit the cars overdose, fighting my case, and I go to use again, because I shot heroin all the way up. Every day I went to court, and anyhow, but I go to my good friend Rich and Missy's house, and I shoot up, and it wasn't enough, so I shoot up another rig. And I wake up in Rush Copley Hospital. Amber alert. I wake up in Rush Copley Hospital. My face is beat up. I'm missing a tooth. I got phones beeping all over the place. And my wife standing at the end of the bed, and I'm going, what happened? She goes, Tim, they found you dead on Hill Street. A police officer found you dead in the middle of the road. And once clarity, I'm like, hold on, I was at Rich and Missy's. So I had OD'd. My good friends dragged me down 2 flights of stairs. That's why he's missing teeth in my face.
Jesus.
And dragged me 2 blocks down the road and left me for dead.
So they just threw you out. They didn't want to call the cops in because they didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah,
so they just threw you out in the street.
Right.
Exactly. So I ripped all the shit off, went back, went home, changed, went to their house, beat both of them with an inch of their life, got my coat, my money, and I left. They're both dead from drug overdoses today. But that's
horrible.
Yeah. So in prison, I did my time. I didn't get a TV. I wasn't there to do push-ups. I went through the 12 steps, wrote a couple business plans, had meetings every day. My wife divorced me, lost our home in foreclosure, displaced my 4 kids. I had to move to my former wife's mom's house after 10 years because of me. I walked out 13 and a half months later. I didn't have to do 7 years. I got 3, 3, and 1. So I only had to do 3 years. I cut it in half, and I got a little good time for being in a therapeutic community. But 13 and a half months was enough for me. And my mom had found a little townhouse of my ex-wife in downtown Naperville. My mom paid the bills for 3 months and said, you're on your own, So I got it there so I could walk to the L&O Club, I could walk to the train, and I could walk downtown. I didn't have a driver's license. I have one now, and I've had one for 5 years. No blow and go, no nothing. It's a fucking privilege. Don't fuck up your driving. And I plugged into recovery again. I went to a meeting as soon as my parole agent showed up, got another sponsor, rocked the steps. I took a job back in recruiting, and I had to commute by a train. So I had to go an hour train to Chicago, walk to Ogilvie, take another train to Palatine, take a bus to work. I commuted 2.5 hours each way to work, went to an 8 o'clock meeting every night. And about 3 months in, I called my mom. I said, hey, can I borrow 15 grand? She said, for what? I said, I want to set up this nonprofit, a Manor Recovery Foundation. My motto is I take people from dope to hope, help one addict at a time. And she said, are you going to pay me back this time? I said, yeah. I quit my job, set up this nonprofit. I set up a number of family support groups where I had the parents or loved one come with the person struggling. I had 7 of those. 3 were 100 miles from my house. I ran those for 3 years straight. I never missed a meeting. I stumbled into working in the treatment industry, and on my 21-month sobriety date, my ex-wife called and said, hey, Nick OD'd. I'm going to come pick you up. She picked me up. We shot to Hinsdale Hospital, ran in the emergency room. Tim Ryan, here to see my son, Nick. He OD'd, and 30 seconds later, the chaplain walked out. I knew my kid was dead. And I'll ask people, what was my next thought? And they're like, you want to get high? I'm like, no, my next thought is I'm going to call my sponsor. And that's what I did. And, I can remember the doctor coming out and being like, did you know I'm like, yeah, I know he did drugs. What's the deal? And he said he didn't make it. Wow. And I'll never forget that fucking scream. And I went in the next room, and there's my son laid out, aspirator, beautiful, blue, cold, lifeless. And I actually thank God for taking him in an overdose because it's painless. But to see the years wasted, the time wasted, Nick had been to treatment 6 times. He had lived in sober living. He knew what to do. But to answer your question earlier on, are people afraid to do something when someone ODs? Yes. Mm-hmm. So when my son, after I'm dealing with all this shit, we got people, I'm at the hospital 4 hours, wait for him to take his body away. And the cops take me in back, and they said, there they are. And it was a glass wall, and I could see a girl and 2 boys. And I said, who's that? And he said, that's your son's girlfriend and his 2 friends. We're charging them all with drug-induced homicide. I said, wow. The fuck you are. And the cop looked at me like I had horns growing out of my head. Well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to put all those kids in treatment. I said, I don't blame them. I blame their ignorance, and I blame the disease of addiction. But that could have been me getting high with my kid. And I want to give these kids a shot. And that's what I did.
That's I got it. Wait, before you go, I got to say that's wonderful. Most people want to jail drug addicts, and that doesn't solve anything. They need treatment.
So the addicts, no, but a dealer, that's a different fucking story. Well, yeah,
dealer's different.
And I'm all on this, but like I look at, and I went to a meeting that night. I went to a 12-step based meeting that night, but his girlfriend is 11 years sober. She's an ICU neonatal nurse down in Chicago. One of the kids is sober. One of the kids is dead. But since my son died, I've attended 160 funerals. I quit going. I've assisted thousands of people into treatment. I was a guest of the 2016 State of the Union. I wrote a book called From Dope to Hope, A Man in Recovery. It's available on Amazon. Buy it. I make $6. I donate it to Sober Living. I had a documentary in my life on A&E in 2017 called Dopeman.
Yeah.
I've been on every news show. I could give a shit about all that stuff. What I care about is having a platform to let people know if I can do it, you can do it. And the greatest gift that happened, I met a psycho in out of treatment, out of prison, in the rooms of recovery, and ended up dating that psycho and getting that psycho pregnant. And that psycho lived with me, and that psycho doesn't live with me. And that beautiful 10.5-year-old daughter lives with me now full time. And my new wife will be my last wife, my only wife, Jennifer Menace, 7.5 years ago. I'm doing, 200 interventions, 300 speaking events, running my nonprofit, running my sport groups, working for a treatment center, trying
busy.
to be a dad,
Good.
going to funerals.
So your wife now, Tim, did she have a problem ever, or?
Now we're getting into that, brother. Here we go. So I was doing a speaking event for Salesforce in Chicago. They wanted me to do my TED Talk. So I did that. And like this 35-year-old consultant comes up to me and she's like, oh my God, I was molested and my dad used to finger me. And I'm like, hold on, I'm not a therapist. I'm a speaker. But I said, I can guide you to a trauma therapist because you've obviously got trauma. And I said, I should partner with the female because when I'm doing speaking events, I want a female perspective. So I've been following this lady on social media by the name of Jennifer Menace, who was a supermodel and an actress. And she was 13.5 years sober at the time. And I shot her a message on Facebook. Hey, would you be interested? And she messaged me back and she didn't use Messenger. 6 weeks later, I flew to Florida to meet her. And she picks me up at Fort Lauderdale Airport, gives me a little hug. I gave her a little kiss, and I took her right to the company I was chief marketing officer for, a treatment center, and she interviewed, and they made her a job offer, and we went to an early dinner, and I was already in the middle of my second divorce, and I looked at her, and I said, I'm going to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you, and she says, hey, maybe you want to finish that second divorce? I said, that'll be done in 4 or 5 weeks. She goes, go sow your oats, play the field. I said, I don't roll that way. And I was divorced 4 weeks later. We got engaged 4 months later, got married that year, December 31st of 2019 at the Justice of the Peace in Beverly Hills, and moved out here. And my wife's a little over 20 years sober. At the top of, she was a supermodel. We actually, really cool thing. Last Thursday night, Bruce Weber discovered my wife. He's one of the biggest photographers in the world. And he had a photography art thing going on. So we showed up. My wife hasn't seen Bruce Weber in 35 years. And we got to see him. And when they embraced, and it was just beautiful. And this man changed my wife's life because she went to being a supermodel. 3 weeks later, she filmed a Oscar-nominated documentary on Chet Baker, a famous jazz musician. And then she did music videos.
So he's the one that discovered her, you said?
Bruce Weber. Bruce discovered her, and he was doing a documentary also on Chet Baker, one of the famous jazz musicians, and Jenny was in that. And when they got done with the documentary, Chet committed suicide. Crazy.
Whoa.
But yeah, then she got into music videos with Tupac and Lionel Richie and Prince and Babyface and Mick Jagger. Then she got into acting, and her breakout role was in Blow with Johnny Depp. She plays.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that last time. That's awesome. That was awesome.
Naz and Boston George Young, who the movie's on, we became dear friends with up until the day he's the most fascinating man I've ever met in my life. And then she did Vanilla Sky and Charlie's Angels and Corky Romano and Sweetest Thing. At the top of her game, she couldn't stay sober. She hung herself in the psych ward and had to learn how to walk, talk, wheelchair walker to a cane. This lady that speaks 4 languages, actress, supermodel. And that's where addiction takes you, with yourself, by yourself, crying to yourself. Just don't kill yourself. And she got sober in Compton, and 2.5 years later, her doctor from treatment a little doctor by the name of Dr. Drew Pinsky, who called my mother-in-law 3 times and said, your daughter's one of these hopeless cases. I don't know if she'll make it. Well, she did. And he offered her the opportunity to run a show on VH1 called Sober House, and did that. A number of seasons, Celebrity Rehab, and 4 seasons, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And we partnered up, and now we run Dope to Hope, where we do concierge treatment, sober coaching, intervention, sober companion work. She still acts. I filmed a movie. We still write. We just fucking help people and have fun. That's my story.
I gotta say, that's awesome, Tim. And that's, that's why I wanted you here, because you are, a modern day success story. And you've been through a lot of trials and tribulations. You and your wife have both been through a lot of trials and tribulations. And, just by the grace of God that you guys are still alive, because both of you, in certain other circumstances might already be dead. You might not have been able to, when you said she hung herself, she might not have been able. Absolutely. I mean, just these little things that now you are where you are today, though. But so at the end of this, we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. At the end of this, I'm going to have you, tell everybody where they can contact you if they want your services and stuff like that. But I want to ask you a few questions about things that are going on in the country, okay? Because you're in a unique position to answer these kind of things.
Go ahead.
The biggest one for me is, I want you to be honest with me. Is the government actually trying to stop the fentanyl, or are they just letting it happen?
That's a great question. Well, the only good thing in the government is fucking Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy
has been great. He has been great.
You want to know how I met that fucking guy?
Yeah, I do, actually. I want to hear this.
Well, he's very open about his recovery. So I met him at a meeting. And,
very cool.
And he comes in with Secret Service, and then he leaves, and then he came in, he had a call or something. But when we're closing, we grabbed hands, did the Lord's Prayer. And I said, hey, I hate to do this, but I need your number. So he gives me his email. I wrote it down wrong. I was working a project out of Florida, so I show up 2 weeks later at a meeting there, and I run into him. And we sat outside and talked for 45 minutes. I shared my story. He said, here's my phone number. Let's keep in touch. And I keep in touch with him all the time. But you've got so many variables because there's so much corruption. There's I don't care. The president of Mexico is on the cartel's payroll. That's who's running Mexico, Venezuela, these people are so stupid. We took out Maduro because he's one of the biggest drug traffickers. And just give it another 2 to 4 weeks, you're going to probably see, I don't know, I would guesstimate 12 to 25 names coming out that were getting money from that man from the drug trade.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And
it is.
Let's put it this way. I was at the State of the Union address in 2016. I can remember in 2017 in Federal Plaza, downtown Chicago, I'm the keynote speaker. You got Senator Dick Durbin, you got Tammy Duckworth, you got Congressman Foster. I respect Bill because he took me to the State of the Union. Mm-hmm. But these guys don't do shit. Randy Holkren, who was a Republican congressman, was one of the most straight up guys. And Randy I met with, and he said, look, Tim, he said, I'll take you to Congress. I'll get you to speak. You'll speak for 20 minutes. They will give you a standing ovation. And he said, the second you walk out that door, they already forgot about you, who you are, because you don't fit their agenda. And that's what it is. And it's a grassroots people. And you know what really bothers me is when I started my nonprofit, I borrowed 15 grand, put it in. My speaking fees, I would have paid to my nonprofit 5 grand, 10 grand. I put it in there to help 10 families. So I'm giving all this money. I'm making a way. And then I see all the fucking fraud, these NGOs, the billions they're getting, the hundreds of millions. And I'm like, do you know how many families I could have helped? And I hear all these. Now I went from shithole Illinois to shithole California, and they're only shitholes because of the politics. Yeah. But I listen to these morons out here with the homelessness and, well, we're going to build housing. No, you dumbass. You build long-term inpatient psych wards and treatment centers and keep these people at them 18 to 24 months with job skills and anger management and all that. Then they can move into housing because they're sober. You don't take drug addicts and put them into housing. They're going to destroy it and die alone. But
see, you need to be an advisor on some kind. Have you talked to Kennedy about maybe talking to Trump about you be some kind of advisor?
Yeah,
to things
I'm trying.
like this
I'm on board. Nobody listens. And
yeah, but those are great things right there. That's
right.
what needs to happen.
And here I go after people like Barack Obama. I'll say what I say, and then I get banned on platforms because I'm telling the truth.
I don't understand why you were banned on X. It makes no sense to me.
I don't know. I probably called the Pope a pedo or something like that.
That might do it.
Might do it.
It might do it on it. Yeah, yeah.
It.
You never. So let me ask you, or Jay, you got a question you want to ask?
No, just real quick. Just give us a daily day for you now, because obviously it never goes away. Obviously.
So I have very strict routines. So I'm up at 5. I make a cup of coffee. I take my dog out. I pray. I meditate 20 minutes every morning, afternoon. I do a gratitude list of things I'm grateful for the day prior and the day, and I share it with about 100 guys. Then I'm on a 6 a.m. 12-step based meeting with about 24 guys. It's a private meeting. I've got some A-list guys on there. I got some hardcore 3-letter agency guys, special forces that can't talk openly. I do that. Then I get my day going. And right now I'm coaching 4 different guys. I'm running a concierge treatment gig. I'm consulting with another program. We're getting our podcast going again. I'm working on 2 documentaries, and and then I'm a dad, and I got kids all over. And
you got so much going on, Tim. That's
why I probably talk to at least 100 people a day.
Oh man, and it's amazing. That's why I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Dude, I'll do this all the time because the way you reached out to me 2 years ago or whatever, but you've always been consistent, but you got the personality. You know how many of these stupid podcasts I do, and it's like talking to this bottle of water. It's like, ask a question. Hello, what are you doing? But you guys, you're not just in this. You're open to listening and talking about other things. And I've helped multi-billionaires. I helped the homeless guy under the fucking bridge. It doesn't matter. The disease of addiction doesn't discriminate. If
reaches
you put
all
your hand up and need help, I'm the guy that'll help you.
And Tim, real quick, since we only got a couple minutes left, tell people how they can reach you and where they can get your book and all sorts of things.
You can get my book on Amazon, Tim Ryan, From Dope to Hope, A Man of Recovery. My website is dope2hope.com, DOPETOHOPE.com. You want to call me, my cell phone is 312.
Wait, you really want to give them your cell phone number?
312-502-8671.
Okay.
312-502-8671. I give myself
out on. There's no editing it out.
I don't give a fuck. I go. So I'm with my buddy. I'm with a good friend of mine who's a big actor and a comedian, and his wife might have just sold a basketball team. We'll leave it at that.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So we're in a prison in Illinois where I was an inmate, and it's me, my buddy, his sponsor, and my wife. And I'm speaking to 2,500 inmates, and I give him my number, and he looks at me and said, "Are you nuts?" And I said, "Let me tell you, I was an inmate in prison, and guys came in to speak, and I wish to God I could call them, thank them, or pick their brain."
That's true.
And I keep in touch from that run. About 10 of the guys that still contact me, I put money on their books so they can call, but I don't forget where I came from. I'm nothing fancy. Sure, I live in Beverly Hills. I rent a place. I drive a nice car. That's about it.
But I gotta say, Tim, you've been amazing today. You were amazing. Like I said, you were our second guest ever on the 3rd episode of our podcast. We were a pre-recorded audio only podcast. We've come a long way. Now here we are. We get to see your smiling face. We're gonna have to have you back on again because you're one of my favorite guests.
Love to. Get my wife on. She'll rock your fucking world.
Tell you what, why don't we get you both on at the same time? I think we'll have you both on together. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, my man. I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to text you after the show, okay?
Jack Jay, thank you, boys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you so much, Tim. We really appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
You got it.
All right, man. That was awesome, man. I absolutely loved Tim. He's such a cool guy, and he's vivid in his storytelling, and I think that's what makes it, he's not boring. There's so many people that'll come on and tell their life stories, and they're boring. Tim is not boring.
No, he's definitely not boring, and he's also, everything he's saying is honest. I mean,
it's real. That's the thing. It's honest.
It's pretty raw, is what.
And I love that. And I love that. I hate people that filter themselves.
No,
especially when you're coming on here to tell your story and then you filter it. No. And that's why I love Tim. That's why we're going to have him on probably 1,000 more times, over the next 10 years of our show because he's awesome, guys. Real quick, make sure you guys check out Max Associates. associates.etsy.com. Make sure you do that. Go right here. You can do the QR code. You can scan the QR code right now. Make sure you guys check that out. It really is an awesome website. I want to show you this right here. This is one of my favorite things right here, Jake. Check this out.
Make it
Freedom
quick, Jack.
lives
Make
here.
it quick.
I know. Freedom lives here. I love this shirt. Make sure you guys check this out. maxassociates.etsy.com. You can get stuff like this shirt right here. Freedom lives here.
That shirt's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love that shirt.
I know. Isn't that really cool?
Yeah.
So cool. So cool. So thank you guys. I want to thank everybody that watched the show. I want to thank Tim Ryan for coming on the show. We're definitely going to have him here again. He is awesome. He's an amazing guest. So for Jay Gatling, I am Jack Danger. Thank you for watching Secret America.
You've been listening to Secret America.